All right, well, welcome to another episode of Comic Book Squares. Here we are at Fan Fusion 2023. We're excited to have another interview. We'll kick the show off. My name's Shane.
I'm Paul. I'm Ben. And I'm Mike. Let's get this show started. All right, so with us, we are at Phoenix Fan Fusion. We're doing a live show today. We're super excited to be here. We have some fantastic guests with us today. Right now, we have Dan. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about some of the projects you're working on right now.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. So right now I got a book called Black Tape on the stands. The last issue just came out maybe in last week. I think here's Martin. Yes, published by AWA, and they're a great artistic team. Dalibor is, the stuff looks like it's from the era. The book takes place in the very, very early 70s. There's another book coming out from Boone called Alice Never After. It's a follow-up to Alice Ever After. And fantastic illustrations in that. And I'm doing some of the artwork film, some not flashbacks, but the story takes place in two different places, one in Wonderland and one in London. So I'm doing this smaller sided story. And then I'm doing a book. There's a final issue I'm looking at right now with Scott Snyder, who's writing it, and I'm drawing it. And we have 15 days left. It's generic. It's a Royal Western. And I think I'll be able to announce it because the book will be coming out by the time this podcast comes out. I'm writing a Red Sonja story called Savage Red Sonja.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a lot of cover. We got amazing covers coming up with like Frank Cho and Bill Johnson and who knows who else. I think Micah Souza is going to be wearing a cover artist. She's phenomenal. I don't know if you've seen her work.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Is that a one shot or is that
it's typically a 5 or 6 issue miniseries. All right. Yeah. The artistic team is so good. The pages roll in. As an artist, you write, you have an idea of how it's going to look with you drew it, and then see how someone else in turn said it's just a lot of fun. Yeah, it's like me reading it for the first time.
That brings up my first question for you is, being both an artist and a writer, like, how is that? Like, writing it, again, you're an artist, right? So now you're envisioning this artwork as you're writing it. We get those pages. Do you give a lot of feedback, or are you usually more hands-on?
Like, you understand? I try not to, only because I just know how artists are sensitive people. So I give it to them. Also, I don't want them like if somebody changes. Like when an artist draws someone, the last thing they're going to do is go back and redraw it. Right. What's done, and they remind you of other things to do. So I try to keep the feedback to the minimum in that regard.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So Dan, I kind of heard a very interesting story, kind of as you were younger and getting.
It's good.
It's family friendly. I've heard a story. It's family friendly about kind of how you were first as a teenager interested in comics, and then you had a couple of big name folks that kind of helped you early on. And if you don't mind, kind of telling that story, I think it's a fantastic story.
One is my dad always wanted to be a comic book artist, so I think I wanted to impress him, and so I started drawing him pretty early. I was 14. I sent in samples to Marvel Comics. They had a thing called the Marvel Comics Triad book. I sent them in, and Marvel liked them. They didn't realize how old I was, but I got a lot of feedback, and so from there, I was chomping at the bit. But I took some time off. I didn't go to New York until I was 21. But my very first show was a show a lot smaller than this, but it was a big show for New York. It's what the New York Comic Con is now, but with this smaller and across from Madison Square Garden. I met, right off the bat, Walt Simonson. And I was, I used to subscribe to Thor as a kid. I can get these comics in a brown bag, Marvel. Different sort of thing. And he saw the work and he asked me what book I was working on at Marvel. Like, he assumed I was already in the business. So I told him I wasn't. And he was like, I'm going to call up my editor, Ralph Macchio, and see if I can do some work. I said, wow, should have done this. Waffle. But Walt's a type of guy where he's helped so many people. He's taught. There's a teacher also. He's big heart. Just very kind of him to do that because everybody's very busy. Just seeing the thought you waited at the phone call and just met is, pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And I met Neil Adams at Sense Show, and Neil asked me to come in and start looking for my continuity, and I had Joe Kubert, and it was fantastic. I was very fortunate. And I started working doing backups right away, and I would never say no to a job, so I was doing everything I could.
I love that story. It just, obviously, it doesn't get much bigger than that, right? Those being rubbish, yeah, with those names. And, a lot of the people that we've talked to, again, trying to give a lot of these self-publishers a voice when they don't have a voice. And a lot of it is really the timing or just a lucky chance or a lucky communication that happens. And it sounds like it was that way with you as well.
Yeah, I grew up, went to high school in Florida, and John Beatty is out there, and John Beatty was a King Mike Sec on Secret Wars. Prior to that, he was on Captain America, and I got my start mostly inking. I always wanted to draw, but I wasn't good. The skill level wasn't quite there, so I thought I would break in doing inking and seeing seeing actual comic book pages in person for the first time. How it changes your perspective on what's required for the job. So that was kind of, I think that helps, as far as, Billy having a hands-on feel of what's ahead.
So Dan, when you first got brought on like that, after Walt spoke up for you, and you were able to get your foot in the door, were you working in the bullpen with those guys? Were you?
I mean, you could. It was an interesting scenario because as a kid, you would read their bulletins. It was like a sort.
It stands so much, right?
And it was like that. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You had Virginia Ramita, John Ramita's senior's wife, was running the bullpen, and you could get free art supplies and it's like, you're not using this for a DC job, are you? Bill activity.
I see this color on Superman words, buddy.
Exactly. It was I think a lot of fun, and you could draw in there if you were late on a deadline, but mostly it was just production people in there.
Sure.
Because we weren't emailing files, so we weren't using FTPs to drop off files. So if you wanted to be in New York City, agents would come in and to send them back to the artist to make a correction. It wasn't time effective. So someone in the bullpen, talented guys like Tom Morgan or Scott Publish would make the corrections if they're necessary. So there was quite a few cases. Mark Tixiero was always in he was always late, and they're just like, coffee at the Snickers bars.
I mean, talk about unsung heroes, though. We talk about, everything's been able to move towards digital, which has really accelerated the process. And back then, we were kids. You're 10 years old, being a comic, you had no idea the logistics behind it, or that you needed somebody behind the scenes that could really quick fill something in.
It was fun. They would do like baseball games versus DC, and they get to partake. I worked for DC and Marvel, and a little bit for continuity until the Bardo DC war got to be so much that I had some choices there. Sure. But yeah, Neil's comments, he was putting together the comic, which in my mind, I was such a fan of Marvel and DC, that's where I wanted to be. Yeah. But Neil was very giving with his information, and it was like going to art school, working with him. I would bring him pages, and then he'd have pages I had bought in from the previous day. He'd completely redo them, but tell me why. Right. So it was a big help. Yeah. I still think about those things today. I ran into his son, Joel, on the floor today. Really? Joel's artist, does a lot of design working, storyboard work for like King of the Hill and animation. Like that.
Yeah. So as you talked about, you had the dream of working with DC and Marvel and stuff. What started to draw you toward creator writings?
Well, growing up, I liked, I got into it as a Conan, but then when I really started getting into comics, so I really loved the seminal stuff, but I started getting into X-Men, because I saw now in the back of the set, I started Conan for X-Men. There's a John Byrne, Terry Austin team. And then Thor with Simonson and Frank Miller. That was the time when I was probably 14 years old, all through high school. These guys were doing it, and they were writing and drawing the books. I was like, that is what I want to do. Write and draw my own work, and just going to, 20 years. Yeah, a little time. I had to think that you get there, but yeah, that was my dream. And you want to, you can definitely create things for Marvel and DC. It's just, it's a little different. Like thanks to Image and other companies like Dark Horse and Doom and Mad Cave, the Dynamite, where you can create those things and have full control over them. And most likely, you're the only one that's going to be working on those properties, unless it's like something that's Todd McFarlane or TF, well, it was Alan Moore want to write something, right? Yes, like a more pull and I'm like ever half in life.
So that was another kind of interesting transition, I would imagine, as Image, as you've got this kind of smaller group of very talented individuals that are like, hey, we're going to start our own, company. Really. I mean, was that like a really difficult decision for you, or did you feel that at the time?
Yeah, I guess no, that was a little bit. Well, I mean, all my favorite guys, I was a big fan of what was happening in the X-Men office, and they were all migrating for Image. And I worked on Rob Liefeld's last issue, or maybe two issues, I think it was 1 or 2 issues of X-Force. And then, he was telling me, I was working on that been starting to stay thing, and he was saying, why don't you come over? This is what you can expect for royalties on this issue. And my mind was blown. I couldn't believe it. And Mark Silvestri is working with Scott Williams. And Scott was I got most of my work in these companies because Scott Williams wasn't available. And there was very few people that were, in the beginning, were kind of following that trend for inking. But I very early on, we had left a book called AWA Studios that Wells Patashio was penciling, and he couldn't finish it because of the X-Men more. So they saw me studying the pages constantly, Morgan, who went, oh, this guy might be a good fit. Give him the pages, And I was still very new to everything, but it definitely helped getting the right place at the right time, recognize that I was interested in that type of work. So, so when Silvestri was doing Cyberforce, Scott couldn't do it all, so I came in to do that. And then all these guys are all friends, like Silvestri, Rob, Jim, Todd, they're all friends, but they're very competitive. So Rob was like, hey, if you come to see Extreme Studios, I'll pay you triple. That was so as a no-brainer. And he goes, and I'll let you pencil. I had no experience penciling. So I was like, sure. Why not? I was good. But Rob is very, very generous guy, and very, as anyone who's into comics knows, incredibly enthusiastic, very, he is, and still to this day, high energy, ambitious. So yeah. So it was fun. So I moved out, and did LA. Well, that was Anaheim. But I was looking at the beach. It was great. Never looked back. The weather was great. It's fun. It's exciting. You know, like the weather here, Phoenix? I don't believe that. It's better than the weather in Florida. Yeah, you walk outside in Florida, it's drenched in sweat. Labor to my yeah, exactly. I don't miss that.
So before we let's have that. Well, I jabber. Well, I did before I forget to ask this. Where can people go to find, to keep up with you now, or all this stuff?
Like for Twitter and Instagram, it's Urban Barbarian, one word. Posts there fairly regularly. I have a Facebook page also that's not it's not like a fan page, but it's a regular page. The fan limit's up to I didn't realize there was a follow feature.
Oh yeah,
but that's up. But you can still follow and keep up, and I post quite a bit on that.
Okay.
Mostly what I post is lies, it's a personal update. It's nice.
You can have people following you around,
Well, yeah, no, I get bored.
Well, I have a quick question. So it seems like your career started really super early out at 14, and then waited till 21, obviously. But still, I mean, I could consider 14 when you send your first stuff in.
Yeah, I was doing work for Narrative Comics in Trinity while I was in high school.
Yeah,
and Blackthorn and let's say a little bit on that.
So my question is, and it seems like you've dabbled in all different areas, from inking to writing to, and so I guess my question is, how do you
halfway that kind of a thing out when your hands are at so many different places, and how does that work? I mean, how do you? Well, I mean, I was constantly, still while I was in the business, like pitching scripts, and in the beginning, a publisher is not going to take a strip of my ass. I drew it. We go, well, maybe this story is. We'll see what we can do. We'll there now, but at least the art of paying and then not help sell it. But now, I'm writing stuff in other artists have gone, so it's it's like anything that's flying out for it, on a smaller scale. I haven't heard Marvel knocking out my door for into writing, but maybe one day. Interesting. But I have so much fun doing the creator IT stuff. It's I learned it have to do something like Logan or Batman or something, but that I'm a big fan of. Because I'm having so much fun. Again, not that anybody's knocking on my door asking anyhow, so it's not like I have much of that choice.
Well, we'll send them this up.
Yeah, send something. Oh, we never considered that. That's it.
It's Panosian.
Yeah,
we actually asked that question of a lot of creators. I mean, do they? I mean, everybody wants to work for the big two.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of this.
Oh yeah, but that creator on stuff, boy, you really, there's an empowerment there. Yeah, you can say and do what you want.
Yeah, well, from Ender, he'll ever be working for Marvel.
Right.
So he's so happy.
I love the End League. You remember? Oh yeah, that's it. I love that series.
Beautiful work.
It was weird because it was like the first 9-issue limited series I ever. I'm like, that's a weird number, and it just he ran out of story at 9, I guess. But it was great. I enjoyed that series, and I was like, there's nothing else out there. And then he read his comments about how he came to that. It was the big event series books. The Crisis on the Single.
You always deal with Marvel, and he started as an inker also.
Yes.
And Rick can also draw too.
Yes.
He ever Jane H. to Marvel, but he was inking his buddy Kieran Dwyer.
That's right.
Captain America. But and then in the story, he's very smart about might be helpful for people wanting to break in as writers, but he would write these independent books from I guess Image.
Yes.
And he just gave 100% of the profits to the artist, so he can be a good artist to work on it. This is just like banking on his career, dusting himself in that way.
Yeah, interesting. Really, really smart, and I think was Endley was that Dark Horse?
Pardon, is that it?
Endley,
That might have been
Dark Horse. So he's kind of made
I think us too. It's a small industry, relatively speaking, and a lot of editors will be at one place, and 2 years later they'll be at another place. But if you have a good relationship with those editors,
that's it.
You're looking at all these different companies. I don't know that there's a publisher I haven't worked for. It was a wine because it's just this is like a high school reunion down there. I get Sally, still the same people.
Networking, right?
Yeah.
Great stuff. Piggyback off that, because you have obviously been in the industry for quite some time. It's obviously gone through quite a bit of change. Do you feel like, I guess, how is your opinion of where we're at now? Is it a positive change as far as being more social, more digital, more
not accessible, for fans? And of course, you get to hear opinions, good and bad, more readily. Yeah. But no, I think it's great. And I love seeing how these comic book conventions have changed so drastically, even in 10 years, let alone 30. Yeah, it's a big difference. And then now a show like this size, unheard of, back when I started, and it's a huge deal. And it's great. My favorite part is seeing all the cosplay. Because, these grown adults dressed up and just so excited to have, and the costumes are insane. I saw a guy with a Doc Ock thing. I'm like, it's too much. It's so much fun. I love it.
Yeah, I agree. With I want to touch on the series of touching. Have been reading it here. This is recent out Black Tape it's from AWA. And I love this series. Like you were talking about earlier, the artwork is just recaptures that 70s and things that he has a Stewart. Yeah, I feel like even more gambler quality. Yeah, even the colors were some of the same filters you could see 70s directly. Yeah, And so that's my prescore. But anyway, the question now comes about slow, but
He never bought us and that's the building blocks is good and wide.
where did the story come from? How did you conceptualize this?
I love that era, films and the D's, and I guess living in Laurel Canyon where the story takes place, that's kind of the rock and roll history from that time, and not a lot has changed. Like I feel it's in that neighborhood. Same thing with Burbank. Burbank, for the most part, that's at the time capsule to the 60s and sets, or even the 50s in some places. It's pretty wild. So I loved Alfred Hitchcock films, and it just kind of naturally came about. And I loved. I don't know. It's a strange movie called Billy Jack. Oh, my dad had me watching that endless for as a kid. I have a huge 3-sheet Billy Jack. Both for eyes. Hey, here. What was it? Yeah, you like that? Yeah. Wow, that is fun. Well, interesting.
Brings it all around.
Yeah, full circle. It's a lot of his influences. Yeah, Langsty and
Oh yeah, it's obvious.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, we got some audience members. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask Dan before?
So you talked about like kind of your age went into college, but that's not really kind of varying, is it? Where you, I mean, young and the
I think so. I mean, guys like there's an Italian artist, this Gigi Cavagnano. I'll mess up the name the way everyone messes up. What is it? I think. Yeah, but he just goes by the name Gigi Cave, and I met him on DeviantArt, and he's great when I first met him, but even better now. And Sean Bothy is posting a lot on that's how I met Sean. But I do think that you can get seen. There's more ways to get seen, and also you have access to so many different art styles and so many different people that I grew up just like draw like this or draw like that. That's the house style. I don't think there's house styles anymore at Model or DC. I think it's very individual, creative. I think it's very hard to get into the writing side of things. Like, regardless, you really have to almost self-publish and have some buzz before, repeat 2 or 3 or 4 will actually recognize that, give you a chance.
It's funny, we talked to Mark Guggenheim on our show not long ago, and he said he got into TV writing because it was easier to break into TV then. I always was his goal.
Wow, the old, I can believe that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was in TV, you could start as a writing assistant, or you could just be in proximity to them in such capacity. It's training and spec stripped, and right there you have your key people that might hire you. Here, then you don't see. There are already any editors at the show, as far as I could tell. Yeah, so you really have to talk to editors to get work. What I did was I just constantly, even while I was working at Marvel, I would take the 10 best pages that I did that month and send them to all the editors at all the companies. I would have like a stack and just bombard them endlessly with the samples. And I was already in the business, and it was just, I wanted greed.
I want more. All for me.
Well, I think that's a good point, though. It's like you always need to network yourself, right? I mean, I know even hearing Todd McFarlane talk about, rejection, trying to break into the scene and having to deal with so much rejection, like you constantly have to be trying to not necessarily reintroduce yourself, but just keep getting your name out there. And like you said, always get that, establish that buzz.
Todd's stuff didn't quite fit in with the comic book art at the time. It also was interesting. It was been very hard for him to get work. And there was a series at DC, I remember, that was kind of a interesting. That's the first time I ever saw his work prior to Marvel. And then, I don't know, that was a synergistic time for him. He should perfect storm and for a lot of these guys, because, if you didn't draw like, say, John Buscema or, not Jack Kirby, but like that kind of a Ron Wilson sort of style, or nothing get worked. Yeah.
And his Spider-Man is iconic now.
Yeah.
I mean, people got that. They look back at it. And maybe it's because now he's Todd McFarlane, right?
Back then he was. Yeah. You wouldn't have other guys like on it like that in that style, and it created that old lightning look.
Yeah. So has anyone kind of inspired you as far as, like you were mentioning, some, kind of breaking on the scene? You see some of these young artists, and obviously like digital art and things that weren't really readily available back in the day, and it's kind of slowly crept up, in popularity. I mean, does that inspire you to maybe try some of those different?
All the time. Yeah. Like, so I color my own work also. And so just seeing different coloring techniques and being on Instagram and Twitter, I'm just actually inspired and finding them things. So it's very helpful. Yeah, I imagine it's the same way for a lot of artists. So it's all current also.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Well, thanks so much for coming down here and talking to us. We really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks, and thanks everybody for attending.
What are these giveaways? Let's see.
Oh, yeah, well, we're going to do that in a second here. A quick wrap up for the show here. All right. Well, thanks again for tuning in. This was another great episode. Always wonderful to meet new people. And make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell so we can keep bringing you content like this. And we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, boy. Sure is. And thanks, you guys.